It's a Star Wars show, and I am your host, John Justice, with a breaking news podcast for this Friday, with news coming out of Star Wars Celebration in Japan. As I mentioned earlier this week in the podcast, I would be coming back on this weekend to bring you any of the latest news to come out of the gigantic Star Wars Celebration, again, taking place in Japan. And we have that to share with you on this special podcast today. So let's get right to it.
Will you have a spark that'll light the fire that'll burn the First Order down?
So we have some things that we were expecting, information about the Mandalorian and Grogu, specifically a Mandalorian and Grogu trailer, which has not been released to the public. I have been able to see the trailer myself online, so I'll talk a little bit about what I happened to see. The announcement of a brand new film to come out 1 year after The Mandalorian and Grogu. And also, starting here, Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord. The next animated series from Lucasfilm has just been announced yesterday as Star Wars Celebration. After the Clone Wars, Maul plots to rebuild his criminal syndicate on a planet untouched by the Empire. And during the 20th anniversary Lucasfilm animation panel at Star Wars Celebration Japan, surprise guest Sam Witwer took to the stage to reveal his return to the galaxy far, far away as the star of the next animated series, Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord. Witwer first portrayed Maul in the Clone Wars, later reprising the role in Star Wars Rebels. In a new series set after the events of the final season of the Clone Wars, Maul rises again to lead the underworld factions. Fans attending the panel got an early look at the series in the new animation style in an in-room only sizzle reel that I have not had the opportunity to see yet, unfortunately. Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord is currently in production and will debut on Disney Plus in 2026. I'm curious, obviously, to see what the new animation style is. I'm wondering if it's a little closer to what we've seen in the Tales of series, which is pretty close to the Clone Wars animation style, but it does deviate a little bit. Certainly Rebels is the outlier, as that particular show had quite a smaller budget, and there was a different aesthetic approach that they took to the Rebels animated series. The original movie, so those first, 4 episodes of the Clone Wars that they turned into the Clone Wars film that was originally released theatrically. It's interesting when you go back and watch that, and you compare it to how the animation progressed throughout the years through the course of those 7 seasons of the Clone Wars. That first episode and those first episodes were fairly clunky in terms of the animation. It was fairly stiff. So I'm very interested to see what sort of new animation style they're using for Star Wars Maul Shadow Lord. Listen, I'm excited for the show. This is one of those Disney Star Wars projects that I will certainly watch. Not anything that I was clamoring for. I'm honestly a little bit surprised that we're going back to this era again, this time frame between Episode 3 and Episode 4. I kind of felt like we'd mined everything out of that, but it sounds like with this story and Maul taking place on a planet untouched by the Empire, it could open up and will open up the opportunity to see something a little bit new in terms of that particular timeline within the series. And it'll be interesting to see this fill in a bit of the gap in storytelling between the events of the Clone Wars and then leading up to the Solo film, wherein Darth Maul is then the head of Crimson Dawn. So that in and of itself is rather interesting. Listen, it's funny to me that here's this character that we all absolutely loved the design of, only to have him killed off in The Phantom Menace, but then not really die. And this ends up becoming a bit of a trend within Star Wars storytelling on a number of different fronts. I think specifically, people dying and coming back, but also, How many times can you be stabbed by a lightsaber and still survive? That seems to be a complaint by fans quite often. So, wasn't expecting this. I was expecting some new news relating to animation, but not a Maul series, although it was speculated over the course of the past few days leading up to the announcement. All right, let's get to the next bit of news before we get to the big item that I want to talk about, and that is details on The Mandalorian and Grogu, and specifically the trailer and what I've seen of the footage.
Something inside me has always been there, but now it's awake, and I need help.
From what I could tell from the trailer that I saw, and it wasn't amazing quality, it looks a lot like Mandalorian Season 4 or Season 3. I'll be interested to see an HD 1080p version of the trailer to see if my opinion changes. And listen, this is Mandalorian Season 4. I mean, we've been told that they basically took what was supposed to be the Mandalorian Season 4 and then ended up paring it down and turning it into a movie. And I'm good with that. With every single season of The Mandalorian, especially that third season, there's a handful of those episodes that are absolutely fantastic that would make for a really fun cinematic experience. And certainly the final episode of Mandalorian Season 3 is just absolutely incredible in the battle that takes place. So this being a pared down to a 2-hour plus movie, a full season of The Mandalorian, I'm perfectly fine with. That being said, the trailer certainly also has that vibe to it. But I also appreciate, if that is going to be the case in terms of the aesthetic of the film, I appreciate that it will end up matching what the live-action series on Disney Plus looks like. So, there in of itself, I'm okay with that. In terms of the footage, it also looks like footage that you would see in The Mandalorian Season 4. There was an interesting opening shot in the trailer where you see the Mandalorian going into some sort of bunker or Imperial establishment with snowtroopers, and he ends up taking them out in Mandalorian sort of John Wick, doing that thing with my fingers style. Really cool sequence. The snowtrooper design for the stormtroopers is my hands-down favorite design ever of the stormtroopers. Going back to the original trilogy, I remember waiting to get my snowtrooper action figure when I was a kid. Those used to be rewards from my mother and my father for doing something good or getting good grades at the time, and I still have that coveted action figure in my display case behind me. A lot of focus on Sigourney Weaver, who will also be starring in the Mandalorian and Grogu film. Looks as if she will be taking over a bit of the Grief Karga role, seeing that Carl Weathers passed away. There were some amazing shots of walkers on the side of a mountain, a very thin trail, and a battle that takes place. A walker ends up falling down into the canyon. Massive explosion ensues. A lot of comedy in the trailer, which I thought was rather fun. And something that Star Wars needs. I go back and you watch the original trilogy and certainly A New Hope, and you realize just the healthy dose of comedy that is in that particular film. So I'm excited for it. I mean, we're about a year away from The Mandalorian and Grogu. I really pray that it does good, does well in the box office, and that it has a warm reception. Considering this will be our first return to the big screen for Star Wars since The Rise of Skywalker. And so, listen, the trailer has me excited for the movie. If it was going to be released on TV, I'll be fine with that as well. I'm looking most forward to those big mythology-driven tentpole Star Wars films. And while this is a tentpole Star Wars film, we are talking about, and we'll be talking about in just a moment, spin-off films that aren't going to be telling, at least as far as we know, a larger multiple film narrative. And I'll continue to beat this drum, that I think that that's where the Star Wars lifeblood and the heart of Star Wars really beats, is on the big screen, and the telling of legends and myths that involves all of the different elements that those original Star Wars movies gave us. You know, the science fiction aspect of it, the humor of it, the adventure, the hero's journey, and the fantasy aspect of it. What we've been getting over the course of the live action shows has been kind of a bit of a hodgepodge of all of that spread across different shows to varying degrees of success. And so The Mandalorian is certainly going to fall into the Mandalorian mythology category in the storytelling, and hopefully will extend the storytelling of the Mandoverse leading into Ahsoka Season 2, and what we still expect will be a final film for the Mandoverse to be directed by Dave Filoni. The next announcement, though, is the one that really has me excited on a number of different levels, even though we have few details.
This is not going to go the way you think.
With an incredibly simple Starscape graphic using the traditional Star Wars logo with some Star Wars thematic music that seems somewhat unfamiliar, but it's far too soon for any sort of musical work to have been done on this film. We got a teaser title announcement short video for Star Wars Starfighter, releasing on May 28th of 2027. Directed by Sean Levy of Adam Project on Netflix fame, also the Deadpool and Wolverine film, among a few of his movies. Star Wars Starfighter is starring Ryan Gosling and takes place a few years after the Rise of Skywalker in the timeline. This is a separate film from The Rise of Skywalker. This is not a prequel. This is not a sequel. We are told that this is a standalone film, and there have been many other names that have been bandied about as of late, potentially joining this project. So, I'm incredibly excited for this movie, even though we know very little about it. But I'm excited for what the details that we do know tell us potentially about this film. We do know that it goes into production in the fall of this year. So this should not be a project that is announced and then suddenly falls by the wayside. This looks as if this film will definitely be happening. I love the fact that this takes place after the events of The Rise of Skywalker. And I hope that we continue to have storytelling in the future post The Rise of Skywalker and this film. I want to see the timeline moving forward. I'll take this moment to mention that there was talk at Celebration Japan of the Taika Waititi Star Wars film, apparently is still being worked on. The origin of the Jedi film by James Mangold apparently is also still being worked on, as is the Simon Kinberg trilogy of films, and apparently the Daisy Ridley-led Armin Obaid Chinoy Star Wars film, even though we have no information on it. What we do know now is that The Mandalorian and Grogu will drop next year, and then some 720 some odd days from now, on May 28th of 2027, we will get Star Wars Starfighter. The other thing that has me excited is Ryan Gosling. And the reason Ryan Gosling has me excited is not just because I like him as an actor, and assuming, because I think there's a possibility, there's two different possibilities here on the title of the film. Assuming he is a Starfighter pilot, that would be the first sort of instinctive reaction to a title like that, right? Which I can think of no better title for a Star Wars film for me personally. Spaceships, starfighters, my most cherished element of the Star Wars universe. I absolutely adore the spaceships. So a major Star Wars film titled Starfighter has me genuinely excited. This has nothing to do with Rogue Squadron from what we've been told. And while I've seen some commentary from people saying, well, I kind of wish they were going with unknowns, I'm excited about Ryan Gosling because, to me, Ryan Gosling has seen the story and the script and signed off on the film. So getting an actor like Ryan Gosling, to me, brings a level of potential quality to this picture. If Ryan Gosling is signing on to do a Star Wars movie, the second one since the end of the sequel trilogy, of which there was a lot of controversy at a time when the Star Wars IP is in the roughest patch of its entire existence, having a star the caliber of Ryan Gosling to lead this film has me genuinely excited over the potential quality of the movie. In terms of storyline, who knows? But I want to mention two other things. One, there was talk that other Star Wars characters could appear in this film. So you could get some of the characters that we've seen in, say, The Rise of Skywalker. If this is straight up about a Starfighter pilot, then I think it would make sense that you would see maybe Poe Dameron, considering his Starfighter flying prowess in the sequel trilogy. I just want to add one other thing to this. I mean, this is an all-new story taking place outside of the events of The Rise of Skywalker, even though it takes place after The Rise of Skywalker. So obviously there'll be some connection there in terms of what the state of the galaxy looks like at this time. But, and while I don't think this is high on the list, I just want to throw it out there in case I'm right. Maybe Starfighter doesn't have to do with the spaceship at all, and this is the character's last name. You know, we've had, Starkiller. Of course, we've had Skywalker. Perhaps this is a story about an individual that Ryan Gosling is playing, and his last name is Starfighter. And it's not actually about a Starfighter pilot. So, I don't think that's the case. Based off of the little bit of knowledge of watching Sean Levy films, he also did Free Guy, I can absolutely see him writing and being excited about a story that focuses on a pilot. That being said, if this movie is being presented as a standalone film, but also being looked at as, if it's a hit, we can make more, much like the original Star Wars movie, even though George Lucas had his story for the next, 2 films, I can certainly see where this is actually the title of the name of the character. And it would fit within the Star Wars universe. Now, if I were a betting man, I would go 75-80% that he's a Starfighter pilot. And then, that 20 to 25% that it actually is also his name. But either way, I'm excited for this, for all the reasons that I mentioned. I want to see an extension. I mean, I've said on the show that I'm of the opinion it would have been in Lucasfilm's best interest to do an episode 10 and just continue in the timeline moving forward with new stories. That's what the Star Wars movie-going audience, both hardcore all the way through just the casual, that's what they're most familiar with. Clearly, Disney and Lucasfilm have other ideas, but on its face, I'm excited for this. Star Wars Starfighter, releasing on May 28th, 2027. All right, so if there's any more news that drops this week, depending on how big it is, I believe there's supposed to be an Ahsoka panel today. I'll pop back on for another podcast. If not, expect to hear the next episode on Thursday of next week. Either way, what do you think about all this news? I want to hear from you. TalkShowNerd@gmail.com, or if you're enjoying this up on YouTube, leave a comment there. Until the next show, be it later this weekend or next week, I hope wherever you are, even if it's a galaxy far, far away, you're happy, you're healthy, and you're safe. Take a moment, check out my science fiction space opera adventure series, EMBARK. 7 books in all, available on Amazon.com. Just search for EMBARK and John J.O.N. Justice, and you can pick up your preferred copy of Book 1 in ebook, Kindle Unlimited, paperback, hardcover, and audiobook. Either way, I hope you're happy. I hope you're healthy. Happy Easter. He is risen. God bless to you, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Bye.
The Force will be with you, always.
My nerd world.